We definitely have a few more people come when you're here. A few more people come when you're here. Yeah, 3 or 4. Huh? No. You're here. Nice to have you back, New Goloka. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivratikacharya Asatara Sadashri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dhamma Ki Jai Mathura Dhamma Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dhamma Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dhamma Ki Jai Gangamai Jumuna Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya. Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivasesa Sunyavadi Paskachadi Satarane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Bitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Bitamscha Panchakalpatubhischaki Pasundhya Bhatapatitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevi Namo Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya It's May 13th, 2024 in Hillsborough, North Carolina, New Goloka, and we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 10, Chapter 51, about Muchakundat, text 55. Okay, actually, before we read the Sanskrit, I'd like to hear anybody who knows the meaning of any of these words. Kama would be lust, or in general, desire. So na kamaye would be no desires. Okay. Tava pada seva, that's pretty easy. Service to your lotus feet. Akinchana, without desires. And varam. In the Damodarastaka, we have the word varam. Benediction. Vibho. Great, yes. Okay. Apavarga. Liberation. Without pavaga. And again, we have varam. And Atma Bandham. What does bandha mean? Bondage. So Atma Bandha would be bondage of the self. Nakamayenyam tava pada sevanad. Akinchana parjatamadvaram vibho. Arajikastvam yapavargadam hare. Vrinita aryo varam atma bandhanam. Please chant. Nakameyenya tava pada sevanad. Kinshana parjatamadvaram vivo. Arajikastvam yapavargadam hare. Rinita aryo varam atma bandhanam. Nakamayenya tava pada sevanad. Akinchanat partyatmadvaram vibho. Arajikastvam yapavargadam hare. Vrinita aryo varam atma bandhanam. Nakamayenya tava pada sevanad. Akinchana partyatamadvaram vibho. Arajikastvam yapavargadam hare. Vrinita aryo varam atma bandhanam. Nakameyenya tava pada sevanad. Akinchana partyatamadvaram vibho. Arajikastvam yapavargadam hare. Vrinita aryo varam atma bandhanam. Nakamaye. I do not desire. Anyam. Another. Tava. Your. Pada. Of the feet. Sevanat. Then the service. Akinchana. By those who want nothing material. Partyatamat, which is the favorite object of entreaty. Varam, boon, vibho, O most powerful one. Arajya, worshipping, kaha, who, twam, you, he, indeed, apavarga, of liberation, dam, the bestower, hare, O Lord Hari, vrinita, would choose, arya, a spiritually advanced person, varam, boon, atma, his own, bandhanam, cause of bondage. So this is continuing Muchukunda responding to the Lord, saying to him, I can give you whatever you want. What would you like? BBT translation, O all-powerful one, I desire no boon other than service to your lotus feet, the boon most eagerly sought by those free of material desire. O Hari, what enlightened person who worships you, the giver of liberation, would choose a boon that causes his own bondage? BBT purport, the Lord offered Muchukunda anything he desired, but Muchukunda desired only the Lord. This is pure Krishna consciousness. I'm going to look at Sanatana Goswami's commentary, which is about the same as Srila Jiva Goswami's. I do not desire anything for getting blessings other than service to your lotus feet by direct engagements. I desire only that. Why? It is desired by the devotees who regard even liberation as insignificant, akinchana. They pray for bhakti. More than that, they pray to see you. And more than that, they pray for service to your lotus feet. It is greater than all other human goals. He calls out for qualification. O powerful Lord, capable of bestowing happiness of all human goals, Vibho, worshipping or attaining you, Araja, who give bhakti, apavarga, what person would accept bondage? Apavarga means bhakti, as in the following. And Srila Sanatana Goswami quotes Canto 5, Chapter 19, Text 19 through 20, the translation of which is, that liberation whose essential nature is unmotivated, bhakti yoga to the Lord, full of qualities, who attracts the minds of all beings, who is not the object of merging, who is not described by material words, who remains beyond destruction of the universe, who is the most excellent Atma, who is the son of Vasudeva, takes place by destruction of the knot of ignorance, which causes various material goals when there is association with devotees of the Lord. End of that quote. Or apavarga means liberation. The question could be asked, why do you not accept liberation? Answer, worshipping or serving you who are permanent with some affection, what person can accept a benediction which gives mere liberation? Accepting that benediction is a cause of bondage. At Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Here Muchukunda replies to Krishna's offer to accept a benediction. Quote, those who want nothing material, akinchana, pray for bhakti, but more worthy of prayer is prema, and the most worthy of prayer is the service of your lotus feet. Thus I do not want liberation, what to speak of any other boon, unquote. The phrase apavargadam means the bestower of bhakti yoga, since devotion is referred to by the term apavargo in the 5th canto. So here, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is just making a reference where Srila Sanatana Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami actually quote that verse. Muchukunda said, what discriminating person would choose some ordinary material benediction leading to his own bondage, even if you were willing to grant it? I, however, am not interested even in liberation, so why should I choose such a thing? A second meaning, even one who worships you to get liberation, if he is intelligent, would he accept your boons which create bondage to the world again? What to speak then of your devotee? Nakamaye nam tavapada sevanada kinchana partyat damad varam vivo arajakas tvam yapavargadam hare vrinita aryo vadam atma bandhanam. O all-powerful one, I desire no boon other than service to your lotus feet, the boon most eagerly sought by those free of material desire. O Hari, what enlightened person who worships you, the giver of liberation, would choose a boon that causes his own bondage? So we often have people ask us, what do you want? Right? Everybody has this happen? Right? Like it was just Mother's Day, and before that I had my birthday, and so I had people asking me, what do you want? And even like my youngest son, Keshava, said, Mata, do you have a wish list? Right? So then I look online and it's, well, I would like this. Well, I would like this. You know, my toiletry bag has broken. I'd like another one of that, and like the little case for my deity. So then he gets me something from my wish list. You know, and then Padma got me something from my wish list. Right? Now imagine if the most powerful person who could give you anything, right? If your friend's asking you for something, then you're going to think, well, what could they actually get from me? You're not just thinking about, what do I absolutely want? Do you follow what I'm saying? Yes. You think, what could they get? What could they afford to get? What might they be willing to pay for? What's actually available? But suppose you have the most powerful person, Vibho, say to you, what would you like? I can give you anything you want. And we find in every culture, there are so many stories, traditional stories about this kind of thing. You know, some mystical being, some genie, something comes and says, I can give you anything you want. Everyone's familiar with these kind of stories? And what generally happens from the things that people ask for? They end up getting into trouble. Almost always, they ask for something that ends up being what King Richakunda is saying here, Atma Bandhana. They end up asking for something that just causes them trouble. Right, there's the famous story of King Midas. I want anything I touch to turn into gold. And then his food turned into gold, and finally his daughter turned into gold. And he's like, I really blew it here. I asked for the wrong thing. And it's very frequently happens that what we want in this world actually gives us distress instead of happiness, isn't it? So I sometimes, actually I called a little game, Tamal Krishnamurti did this, and I thought it very instructive, where he says, how many things have you wanted? How many material desires have you had that you just didn't get at all? And usually we have this list, right? The things I wanted that I just didn't get. And then how many things that you wanted that you got ended up being a disappointment. You wanted them, you got them, and you're like, I don't even like this. And sometimes it's a big thing. Sometimes a person will go to school for 8 years for a career and get the career and find out that they hate it. Or they marry the person of their dreams and it ended up being the person of their nightmares. So sometimes it ends up being a really big thing. And then there are the things that we want and we get them and they're perfect and then they're temporary. Right? I think, is she here? Krishna Priya, didn't you say how your parents were a very, very loving couple, and after your father died, your mother didn't get out of bed for a year and then she died? Something like that, yeah. So it's like that, when you find something that's perfect, a relationship, an object that's perfect, then it's temporary. It falls apart, it breaks. The person dies. And then we're also devastated. And everything is in that category. Everything, either we don't get it or it disappoints us, or we get it and we're completely happy with it, and then it's temporary. Dukalayam Shasvatam. Either we're miserable or our happiness is temporary. And so this shows we really don't know what to ask for. So we often try to figure out what to ask for. If I'm trying to figure out, well, what should I ask for? What should I get? Right? And we're thinking, what can I get that's not going to have a downside? That's not going to have some problem associated with it. So maybe I ask other people. I ask people who are wiser than me. Well, what should I get? We ask this in general, like what phone should I get? Or where should I go on vacation? Or should I marry this person? And I try to ask people who are wiser than I am. And then I try to ask people who are like me. That's one part of advertising that we teach in logic class, right? The just like me person. As somebody will come in the advertisement, I'm an ordinary person and I use this toothpaste. And you think, well, then I'll want. And this is nowadays, with especially online shopping, when you look at all the reviews, right? And you look at the reviews of people who are supposedly like you.
Oh, it worked out great. Oh, it worked out great. 5 stars, 5 stars. Yeah, okay, this is going to work out for me. And then our own experiences. We can say, well, I tried this thing and that was pretty good, so I'm going to try this thing. And then it's also our own desires and urges, and sometimes our own desires and urges overcome everything else. So sometimes even when a wiser person says, nah, this wouldn't work out, and all of our friends say this wouldn't work out, right, and we have experience, still we're often pushed by our desires. Right? This was the question that Arjuna asked Krishna. Why do I do things that are against my own benefit? And I remember when I first read that when I was 17, I'm like, yes, what's the answer to this? Why do I do things that I know are bad for me? I mean, even a small thing like, taking an extra cookie when you're already full. Saying something nasty about someone you're going to regret. Talking to someone is going to waste your time. Even little things, what to speak of huge things. I'm like, why do we do this sort of thing? And Krishna's answer was, kama. That's why he's saying, not kama. The desire overcomes everything. I want this so much that never mind everything else. Right? So if we really want to know what is the best thing, then we need to ask people who are wiser, ask people who are like us, work on our experience, and not be overcome by material desire. So I looked a little bit. I mean, there's many more than this, but may sound funny, but I didn't want to write this all over again on a bigger piece of paper, so I was constrained by the size of the paper that I chose to make notes for this class. But I wrote down a few of the things from the Bhagavatam about benedictions, because this is a recurring theme in the Shastra. What's the best thing to ask for, isn't it? Because ultimately, my dear friends, it's our desire that motivates everything. And therefore we want to desire the best thing. Like Krishna says, yam yam bapi sram bhavam twajachante kalevram tam tame vaidikanteya saratad bhava bhavita. We get whatever we are meditating on, and we're going to meditate on what we desire. It's just the way it is. I mean, we can be chanting Hare Krishna, we can be in a kirtan, we can be taking prasadam, but if we're meditating on something else, we're going to get that something else. Like Prabhupada was asked, can you make more advancement living in the temple? And he said, that depends on whether or not one's mind is on another subject matter. And Krishna is very kind. Eko bahunam yo vidadati kama, and he's fulfilling all of our desires. And sometimes people say, well, why doesn't Krishna just force me? Why doesn't he give me the best thing even though I don't desire it? But that wouldn't work. Right? That wouldn't work. Just like many people have asked that question. And I've said to them, okay, you often know what's best for you. Like I was saying, we often do things that we know are not good for us. So you know what's best for you. You know what the ideal day would look like, for example. Like, okay, this would be my ideal activities for the day. But would you want somebody to follow you around with a gun pointed to your head, forcing you to do what's best for you all day? Anybody would like that? No. So Krishna's not going to do that. I remember Hridaya Nandamar saying, if you just took a bunch of materialists and took them to the spiritual world, they wouldn't like it. They'd look around and go, what are all these Hare Krishnas doing here? It's a question of we need to change our desires. It's not just an intellectual thing that, the best thing, what is it? Tabapada Sevana, that's the best thing. Okay, I just want to serve your feet. But actually our desire is different. Our desires, I want to really be the Lord in the material world. So it's not going to work. I mean, you can get some combination of that. Like you can be a big demigod who does service to Krishna as a Lord of the material world. That is available. There are the mixed devotees. So we have all these examples in the Shastra of what is the right thing to ask for. So I was looking at a few of them. So in 2.3.11, spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed on Krishna. Spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed on Krishna. So this would be kind of the definition of kama, but towards Krishna. Like if I have a very, very strong desire for something, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 262 talks about this contemplation and attachment and lust. And we've all experienced this, right? You're thinking, maybe I should get that new watch or that new phone or that new this. Maybe I should. And then we start looking it up and then we start thinking about it. And we start talking to people about it. And then pretty soon it becomes like, I have to have this. I absolutely have to have it. And it becomes a spontaneous thing. It's just coming and it's unflinching. You know what flinch means, right? To move. It doesn't flinch. And then we're just like fixate on it. You particularly see this, of course, with romantic attachments. Right? We've all seen this with romantic attachments. That once somebody gets attached to a certain person, they're not flinching in it. And even if you go to them and say, this is really not a very good idea, it has no effect. Right? We've seen this here at New Goloka several times. And somebody, this is the person I want, and you go, and then this is what we want to Krishna. This kind of just natural, right? As Srila Rupa Goswami says, Yuvatinam yatayuni yuvam cha yuvato yatam manobaramate tadvan manume ramatam twayi. I want this just spontaneous, like a young man and woman half-free. Oh, I want you, and no flinching. All right, so 2.9.21 is to see Krishna by realization. And this is actually spoken by Krishna, where he says, the highest benediction is to see me by realization. Then 4.9.17, worshiping Krishna's feet, which is very much what Muchakunda is asking for. Of course, this may seem very odd to materialistic persons. Right? We in the Hare Krishna movement may seem to have kind of a foot obsession. In our temple, I don't think it's still there, but in Ljubljana in Slovenia, they had on the wall, just like we have these pictures of Radha and Krishna and Krishna Balaram. So they had these two huge bas reliefs of feet. Krishna's lotus feet with the signs and Srimati Radharani's lotus feet with the signs. And I remember talking to Anantaprabhu, the temple president. I said, this is a little odd for a new person who comes to the temple. Somebody comes to the Hare Krishna temple and what kind of artwork is this? And so, this may seem a little peculiar for a materialistic person. Then in 4.12.8, we have this word unflinching again. Unflinching faith and remembrance of Krishna. So this is also interesting, faith and remembrance, because that sounds even like in the beginning stages of bhakti, we're working on faith and remembrance. But again, to have it unflinching, it implies some kind of attraction. I'm only going to remember something if I have some attraction to it. If I don't have attraction to something, my remembrance of it will flinch. If I'm in love with someone or very attached even to something, it will be constantly in my mind. And if I'm trying to force remembrance, it will keep flinching. It will keep shaking. Like when you're trying to force yourself to remember something for an exam and you actually don't care about the thing at all. We've all done this. And you're just trying to force this memory. But your mind keeps wanting to go to something else. I remember for one exam that I was taking here at UNC, so I wrote everything down on a piece of paper that I knew would be on the exam. And then I took another paper and I wrote it again, and I took another paper and I wrote it again, and another paper, and I was trying to force myself. And so when I actually went in for the exam, the first thing I did was take out a blank piece of paper and just write everything down that I had memorized. But you know what? I don't remember any of that now. I remember the process of doing that, but if you asked me for any of that, I couldn't duplicate it at all. Right? Or my father used to teach me memory tricks, like you picture everything in a castle and one thing leading to another. And so I learned to memorize many things like that. But again, I don't remember it anymore. If you ask me what did I because there was no attachment. So if we're talking about unflinching faith and remembrance of Krishna, that cannot happen mechanically. It's just not possible. That implies this attachment. Now this, I think, is the most humorous one. This is from 4/20/24. This is the benediction asked by Maharaj Prithu. Does anyone know what benediction Maharaj Prithu asked for? Of all the benedictions in the Bhagavatam that people ask of the Lord, this is the funniest, I think. If you took it literally, it would actually be absurd. He asked for 1,000,000 ears. Okay, the Lord is in front of you, can give you anything, Vibho, you can have anything you want. I want 1,000,000 ears. And so, of course, he was speaking, he wasn't speaking literally, but he was saying that I always want to be able to hear your glories from the great devotees. I want 1,000,000 ears to be able to hear your glories from the great devotees. And of course, Srila Rupa Goswami has similar prayers, that when we chant the holy name, we desire many, many tongues and many, many ears. And again, he's not speaking of having some weird deformity, you know, or like, what was Banasura who had 1,000 arms? Or Ravana who has 10 heads, so he's not speaking like that. But in other words, I want to be constantly hearing of your glories, constantly hearing of your glories. And this is something I think that we tend to experience in the Hare Krishna movement, that it's hard to hear enough about Krishna. It's difficult to have enough time to hear about Krishna, because hearing about Krishna is so nectarian. You know, I often advise people, you know, they're asking me how they can read more, and so we'll get them on some kind of a reading and study program, and then they'll come back and say, well, this is really working out really well, but I feel like I'm not reading enough. And I said, well, you're never going to feel like you're reading enough. You're always going to feel like you want more. Even if you're reading 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, 6 hours a day, you're still going to think, oh, that's just not enough. It's just not enough. So this idea, I want to be hearing about Krishna all the time. And then in 4:30:30, this is an interesting one, the benediction of the Lord being satisfied with us. So the greatest benediction is the Lord to be satisfied with us. And this reminds me of something that Jesus Christ said, where he talked about the master who gives wealth to 3 servants. I think he gives one of them 10 coins and one of them 5 coins and one of them 1 coin, and then he goes for a trip, and then he comes back and he wants to see what they've done with their coins. And I may not be getting the details exactly right, but the one who got 10, I think he multiplied it to 100. The one who had 5, I think he multiplied it to 10. And the one who had 1, he buried it in the ground. And he said, I've kept it safe. Right? And so the one who had 1 buried in the ground, the master took even that away. He said, you know, you don't know how to use what you're given. But the other 2 who had multiplied what they are given, then the master said, well done, good and faithful servant. When I used to work at a local school, and the woman who worked in the office with me, she was the only one in the building who knew that I was a member of the Hare Krishna movement. Because I was trying to be very much undercover so I could keep the job. I had to have the job for my degree. And so, you know, she was a very, very devout Christian, and she used to play Christian music in the office all the time, which I actually quite appreciated. And one of the pieces that she played was this woman saying, how will people remember me when I'm dead? What will I be leaving as my legacy? And part of the song was to be told by the Lord, well done, good and faithful one. So this is actually a great benediction, that we can come before our Guru, we can come before Srila Prabhupada, we can come before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, and Krishna and his entourage, and they will say, well done. You have taken what I have given you and you have used it nicely. The gifts I have given you, the talents I have given you, the intelligence I've given you, the money I've given you, the facility I've given you, everything I've given you, you have used nicely. Right? Like we're announcing every Sunday feast whose birthday it is. And we're thinking, you know, why do we celebrate birthdays? Because a human birth is very valuable. And especially a human birth at this time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when we're in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. so that the Lord will be satisfied with us, satisfied with how we've used our speech, how we've used our thoughts, how we've used our desire, how we've used our body, how we've used our talents, how we've used the things around us, how we've dealt with other living entities, how we've dealt with the other devotees, how we've dealt with non-devotees, how we've dealt with insects and animals and plants and everything, how we've dealt with the earth. That he's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant, to be satisfied with us. Then in 4:30:33 is to associate with those who discuss your pastimes. So this is a very recurring theme. All right, very much like Maharaj Prithu, I always want to hear about you. So to be with those who are talking about you, which reminds me of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayer where he says, Kita janma hoy kata tu das. That I'd rather be an insect in the house of your devotee. And I was thinking about this the other day. Somebody asked on social media, if you can't go back to Godhead, where would you like to go next birth? And I'm like, well, I really want to go where Krishna's having his pastimes in the material world. And then he said, well, suppose you don't make it there. And I thought about it, and I'm like, but there isn't any. It's like, where else would I want to go? I was once on a Turkish Airlines flight before it was taking off, and they had on the screens, they have the screens in the plane, and so they were advertising their own airlines, which I thought was funny since you were already sitting on their own airlines. But anyway, they're advertising Turkish Airlines, and we go here, and I'm looking at that and saying, I've been there. Oh, we go here, I've been there. Oh, we go here, I've been there. Oh, we go here, I've been there. They're showing these, I guess, movie stars or something in all these places, and I'm sitting there thinking, there's not really any other place I want to go. There's not really anything else I want to do. And so I just responded to this devotee, and I said, I guess I would just, wherever the Lord wants to put me, but I'd really like it to be with some serious devotees. Can I just be with some serious devotees? We have this one from 5:18:23. This is Prahlad Maharaj, and he's saying, place your hand on my head. So this is, again, this kind of, be satisfied with me, accept me, this same kind of thing. This is, by the way, a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful prayer of Prahlad Maharaj. 5:19:15. I want bhakti and no material attachment, very much like what King Muchakunda is saying. And 7:10:7, again, Prahlad Maharaj, that I have no material desires in the core of my heart. In other words, please make sure I don't have any desires that are even hidden from me. Have we experienced this too? We think, oh yeah, I'm free of that. I don't want that anymore. I'm fine with that. And then we find we have some more subtle manifestation of it. Everyone's had this experience. Something comes up and you're like, oh, I actually do still have some desire for that on some level. So he's saying to have nothing there. So by reading this and hearing this, all these great personalities, they're saying, this is what you should ask for. So I often quote where Bali Maharaj says to Vamandev, when he's saying, Vamandev, what do you want? What do you want? And Bali had this mood that he was the master of the universe. He thought that he was Vibho, that he could give anything. And he said, you should ask me for something so great that you'll never have to ask anybody else for anything else ever. At which point Vamandev kind of cut down his pride and showed him that actually he was the Vibho, not Bali. And that Bali actually didn't have the facility to offer him anything. But that's what we should ask for. We should ask for the thing which, having gotten that, every other desire is included. Everything else that's pushing us to ask for other things. Like we're thinking, well, if I had a lot of money, why do we want money? We're thinking, I want security, I want freedom, I want pleasure. But if you have bhakti, you have all that. You have security, you have freedom, you have pleasure. Right? Anything that we could ask for other than pure devotional service is actually the effect of that, the result of that, the reason we're wanting that is included in pure devotional service. So as we keep hearing this over and over and over again, and as we experience Krishna consciousness, our desires start to change. And we start to feel, well, really, that is ultimately what I want. Okay, maybe it's true that right now I could use a new pair of shoes or something, but what I really want is pure devotional service. And these other things that we want in the world become, very insignificant. They don't end up taking our unflinching attention. They end up being just some practical things. Oh, my socks have worn out or something like that, you know. Or I could really use a new chest of drawers, or it would be helpful to do this. But our actual deep desire is for Krishna. So this is the whole goal of sadhana bhakti. Because once we really desire Krishna, Krishna already really desires us. That's already there on his side. People ask all the time, what does Krishna want? He wants you to want him. That's what he wants. He wants you to want, of course we can never want him as much as he wants us. That's not possible. But to want him with that kind of intensity. So questions, comments, additions, subtractions, corrections. This is shedding everywhere. Yes, Maharaj. Oh. Okay, you want me to talk about desires and... Yes, if we want something material, or we want liberation, better to go to Krishna for it than to try to do it independently. So it's not good to be dishonest with Krishna. It's not good to go to Krishna and lie and say, I only want pure devotional service, and then we'll try to work independently to get the red convertible or whatever it is we want, or the pretty girl. You know, if you want something in this world, much better to ask Krishna, like Kardama Muni. He sees the Lord and he says, I know the pure devotees only ask for pure devotional service, but I want a compatible wife. And so the Lord said, well, you'll get both, which is exactly what he got. Yes? That sounds good. Sounds like you're in the right place. When we ask Krishna for things other than pure devotional service, which we should do if we actually want those things, is to ask them with detachment. My dear Lord, I have this desire for this. If you want to give it, fine. If you don't want to give it, fine. We talked about this yesterday a little bit, that if we're obsessive and demanding and tantruming about something, then Krishna is definitely going to say, no way. But often if we just go to him and say, you know, like I gave the example yesterday, that I was just thinking, oh, I'd like another bird sculpture and some more solar lights for the garden, and 2 days later, Guru Bhakta comes and gives them to me. So, you know, when we ask for things with detachment, Krishna is often very kind, and he says, okay, sure. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalem Kriya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Giram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham.
Namaho Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Mutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Samaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacha Nagini Visesha Shunyavadi Paschachare Zacharane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaurakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaurakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaurakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Siddhaita Gadada Siva Sade Gaurvaktarinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hoti Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya Run, Hagaloka Nana Run, Hagaloka Nana Ragate. Naya Hagaloka Nana Rana Goloka Nana Ragate. Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe 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 Jaya Radhe Jaya Sri Radhe Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Vrindavanam ki jai, Mathuram ki jai, Jagannath ki jai, Yamunamai ki jai, Srimati Klasi ki jai, Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari. All glories to you, Son. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Pavamadvagni Nirapanam Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vidhadanam Vidya Vadujivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Vridamanam Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakarit Vahudad Nijasarva Shaktis Tatrapita Nimata Smaranena Kala Etadrasita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapri Durdaiva Mitra Shaniha Nani Nan Raga Junada Peace Nichenat Roriva Sahishnada Amanina Manadena Kirtaniyat Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagarisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishvare Bhavatad Bhaktiridhai Tagi Twaye Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tavapada Pankaja Sita Duli Sadrasam Vachintaya Nayanam Galudashrudaraya Vadanam Gadgada Rudyagara Pulaka Nichitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishati Jugayitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravashayitam Shinyayitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Vidahelame Asli Shiva Padap Pranashtamam Adarshanam Armatam Karotuva Yata tata vadadap to lampato mat prananatas to saeva na paraha. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, or repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon, is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen to the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me at one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shikshashtaka ki jai. Goloka ki jai.